No more powerful argument for Western civilization's present relevance can be made than Vladimir Putin's recent derisions of the collective West. As in Lawrence Berken's What is Western Civilization, Putin's definitions of the West are vague and varied, tailored to his specific purposes. A Russian article, The Collective West, what Putin's really talking about when he talks about the West, seems to say that he's talking about liberal elites imposing their own brand of tyranny disguised as democracy, much like the end result of Alexander Rosenthal Pubel's um, self destructive, unrestrained modern ideas of freedom. As Verkin notes, such broad definitions become so imprecise as to be useless. Like Putin, critiques like Quayne Anthony Afaya's There Is No Such Thing as Western Civilization seek to undermine the idea of the West in unpersuasive ways. Birkin and Robert Royle, in his Who Put the West in Western Civilization, note that one flaw these people critique is that the West falsely claims to have roots in Roman and Greek cultures. They claim that it's the least likely claimant to that heritage historically, geographically, ecologically, and technologically. Yet they can't dispute that knowledge of classical civilizations was reintroduced into Europe and England and used extensively by them in remodeling their governments and societies. These critics also fail to grasp the role of myth in history, so extensively explored by Richard Slotkin in his 3-volume work on how America and Americans are shaped by the myths of their frontier, or the fact, posited by Ernest Brisek's historiography, that ancient Greece and Rome, and even the Holy Roman Empire, extolled largely unproven origins in ancient Troy as part of their self-concept. Surely these critics would not delegitimize those cultures on this basis. So why should they do so to Western civilization? Other critics see the West as a monolithic culture, which cannot presently still exist in the multicultural, pluralistic composition that most countries that claim to be Western now have. Yet, those who advocate the continued viability of the West, like Daniel Hannan in his Inventing Freeman, as well as Lawrence Berken and Robert Royle, present the origins of the West as being multi-ethnic. Perhaps the most invalid critique is that Western civilization is not a viable concept because it hasn't lived up to its own most prized values. Its history is so filled with subjugation of and inequitable treatment toward others through conquest and marginalization that its notions of rule of law, personal autonomy, and representative government are an illusion, making Western civilization itself an illusion. Yet, as noted most by Hanna and Royle, this critique fails to account for the same or even worse atrocities committed in other cultures, as well as refusing to acknowledge that the critics themselves have benefited from Western civilization. While these assaults don't render Western civilization irrelevant, Birkin is correct that a more precise definition would be beneficial in assessing the West as one culture among many. Putin perhaps helps us here when he identifies his real enemies, the Anglo-Saxons, meaning the US, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and those who follow similar ideals. More precise even than the limited definition Birkin suggests, this approaches Hanna's notion of Anglosphere, a concept he believes has been avoided due to its perceived political incorrectness in favor of the less precise West. Far from being ethnocentric, Hanna's concept identifies the evolving social and political culture arising on the British Isles, where a multi-ethnic culture produced a unique system of governing and interacting facilitated by the flexible formation of a language and religious and secular ideals. These ideals were not even shared by the cultures of continental Europe, as corroborated by H. Patrick Glenn's comparison of common and civil law in his Legal Traditions of the World. This is a political culture, along with its associated social, cultural, and economic dynamics that has been exported from its origins to many countries and cultures throughout the world. Even dictatorships copy its forms. This is the real West, the relevant West, the West that Putin fears.